A small message from me before we kick off with today's video. iDRIVEACLASSIC is proud to be sponsored and insured by Adrian Flux. If you haven't heard of Adrian Flux before, they're the UK's leading specialist motor insurance broker, covering everything from classic and vintage cars right through to heavily modified sports cars. So whether you're in a Morris Marina, a 90s retro runabout, or something with a bit more oomph under the bonnet, give them a call for your next policy. I've popped a link to their site in the description box below. Hi guys, it's Steph from iDRIVEACLASSIC, and today I'm back with one of the most iconic cars that I saw at a car show last year. This incredible Austin A90 Atlantic from 1949. I saw it at the car show and I was immediately, do you ever get that feeling where you're really starstruck about a car? Well, I got it about this car, and not just this model of car, this actual car. And the owner, Alistair, said to me, well, why don't you review it then? I said, really? So I've come out today and I'm going to review it for you. I'm going to show you this incredible car. Now, you may know that they came in hardtop and convertible, and there were only 50 to 60 examples of these convertibles left. So we're really, really lucky to be testing this car today. And it's sunny, perfect roof down weather. I couldn't ask for a better day. So we're going to kick off with a walk around the outside, and then I'm going to take you for a test drive. On paper, the Austin A90 Atlantic was a commercial failure, selling only 8,000 units. But looking at it today, it's one of the most stylish and standout cars that Austin ever made. The A90 came out in 1949 and cost an eye-watering £824, which, to put into perspective for the time, the average house price in the UK in 1950 was £1,891, making this car an exceptionally well-considered purchase for a very small sector of society. However, despite the car being made at Longbridge, it was never intended for the home market, but instead going out to the American market. This wasn't a commercial decision Austin perhaps wanted to take, because in the years after the war, the government controlled the steel supplies, and any company failing to export was refused those supplies. So really, businesses needed to come up with an attractive model to compete out in America and overseas territories. With this, the A90 Atlantic was launched at the 1948 Earl's Court Motor Show, which must have been an absolutely incredible event to go to, because it's also the show which saw the launch of the Morris Minor. The car, reportedly designed from a sketch by Chairman of Austin, Leonard Lord, who was definitely influenced by Farina-bodied Alfa 2500 spotted at a show in Geneva in 1946, was initially a convertible car, designed with a 2660cc four-cylinder engine with an output of 88 brake horsepower at 4,000 RPM. In fact, the Austin A90 was named as such due to the 88 brake horsepower on that overhead valve engine, with the Atlantic name picked because it was aimed at uniting the UK market with the American buyer. The performance was pretty good for the era, giving over 90 miles per hour as top speed, with 0 to 60 in just under 18 seconds. This actually made it one of the fastest, earliest post-war production cars. The car was put into the American market to compete alongside American homegrown models. But with its engine much smaller than its American counterpart and the high price tag, it just failed to make an impact like it should have. And in fact, they only ever sold 350 of these cars into the US. Now, it's weird because it should have been the success that Austin planned, because it hit all the right notes. It was simply let down by that four-cylinder engine that, whilst good for British and other non-US export markets, it just didn't cut it with the American buyer, who at the time was very much sold on the notion of nothing compared to a V8. The car instead found its audience elsewhere, in the UK, mainland Europe, Australia and New Zealand, but really these markets just didn't hold up the sales figures, which predicted within the US market to make the Atlantic the success it needed to be. It must be mentioned, however, when we talk about the US, that the car did break 63 stock car records at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in April 1949. So whilst it may not have been the success that Austin planned, it really did hold its own when it was put out there. Now, another interesting fact about this car is the indicators. Because the car was designed for an American market, they were the flashing relay style that you might see on cars today. But in the UK at time of launch, this wasn't legal, and in fact it wouldn't be legal until 1956, because at the time in the UK it was simply non-flashing trafficators which were put onto cars and which were legal. The brakes on this car are hydromechanical Girling drum brakes with rod operated to rear. Now, these were sharing parts with the A90, and it was done purely to ensure the Atlantic went into production on time. Later on, cars like the hardtop cars were introduced with fully hydraulic brakes. Now, though we look at cars like this as works of art today and see their true beauty, in the 60s and 70s, cars like this with their propensity to rot, and my goodness didn't these cars rot, they were scrapped very rapidly, especially with the introduction of the MOT test in 1960, and Healey owners had their eyes on them as well because they were relatively cheap, and therefore it was worth stripping down to service the Healeys because you could put all the running gear directly into the cars. And with all of these elements combined, there are now only around 60 Atlantics left in the UK, with a further 100-ish around the rest of the world. For the car once dubbed to have sports car performance with saloon car comfort, it seems a real shame that the true value of these cars wasn't realised sooner. Although thankfully the Austin County's Car Club really look out for these cars now, and with values going skywards, they're really scrapped nowadays, which is good news, but with only 60 left, it's not great, is it? Now, for such an old car in such wonderful condition, you might have been expecting an older owner. In fact, I will confess I was. But actually, the owner of this car is only in his 30s. Well, a lot of you always tell me that young people aren't into older cars. Well, Alistair is about to prove you wrong. So I'm going to introduce you to Alistair as one of the most warm, friendly and knowledgeable custodians I've met in quite some time. So it's over to you, Alistair, to tell us about your Austin A90 Atlantic.
Hi, I'm Alistair. I own this 1949 Austin A90 Atlantic. I've owned the car now for 6 years. I mainly been into sort of late 40s, early 50s cars, predominantly Austins. I've owned quite a few counties range cars from that period, and I finally managed to get hold of this Austin Atlantic, which is sort of the ultimate Austin to own. I bought the car from the nephew of the original owner, and I've been steadily just restoring parts of the cars like the interior and the exterior, but just trying to maintain the originality of the car.
Coming into this car it's hard to picture, isn't it, that we're stepping back into Britain in 1948. Because of course that is when this car debuted at the Earls Court Motor Show. Designed for an American audience, that's why you've got things like the doors opening wider. This wraparound screen looks like some of the American cars that we've been taking out recently. And it's got that American styling in a way that British cars just didn't have. But even so, it's hard to picture that this car came about in a time when King George was still on the throne, that rationing was still in full swing. So first of all, this is the only thing I don't like about this car. So actually, I was going to redo it there, but I thought it was quite funny that I leant on the horn, so keep doing it. Anyway, let me show you the thing that I don't like about this car, which is these glove boxes. They're so impractical. Look, they catch on there, and they feel quite brittle. And I don't think they're a great design. The same, the one in front of me as the driver is the same, and you really have to push it in. It's the only thing about the car I don't like, so I'll show you everything else. Now over here we've got our Rev Counter. Now these dials might look familiar to you. I think they're used in a Riley RM. They look very similar anyway. So we've got the Rev Counter, we've got the clock, and into the centre we've got 4 here. So we've got amp meter, fuel gauge, water temperature gauge, oil pressure, And over to our right hand side, we've got our speedo. So we've got a 2660cc engine under the bonnet, and I've been reliably informed that people have had these up to 100 miles an hour. Needless to say, on our sedate country drive today, we will not be going that fast. In the centre here, we've got a radio. Now, this was an optional extra, but this is a really big thing for the time, and it's unfortunately not working because I would have liked to have seen, so we've got one speaker down in my footwell, how loud it came out. But look, she's an elderly lady. If she's got a few little niggles here and there, that's fine. And then coming down, we've got a selection of pulls here. So we've got our choke, heater, fog light. So that fog light is that central, almost Cyclops looking light at the front. The push start, the panel lights, and the wipers there as well. Now in the middle, around the key, and we saw this on a recent car, and I think it was the Rover 12 Tourer that had this as well. We've got the side and the headlights there. Now, I would have liked to have shown you the roof today because this is electric. Now, I believe at the time it cost £40 extra for the roof and £40 extra for the electric windows. And by the point of people already subscribing to the purchase, they were like, well, just put it on HP and just chuck an extra £80 on. People were buying these and just getting those on. And when you think about Britain and where we were as a country and a nation at that point, most people didn't have televisions, you know. Having a radio was a luxury. Having electric windows in your car was futuristic. It was incredible. But I won't be able to show you those today because unfortunately the electrics have recently gone and the owner, Alistair, is in the process of getting those fixed. Because I'm sure you can imagine when you've got a car that's over 70 years old, trying to find all the bits and pieces that you need is no mean feat. But I thought, well, the sun is shining anyway. Why would we have the roof up? Now let me show you the steering wheel because we've got everything as you'd expect here. So you've got the horn. And we've got the indicators here as well. So we've seen these on other cars. Can't remember what this is shared with. It's on something similar. It might be a Ford. I don't know, but I've seen it on something else. It's exactly the same setup. Very similar to that Corsair, but not quite the same. Handbrake is the umbrella handbrake. And everything just feels like, well, it's positioned really well. I feel like my seating position is really nice. I can almost see to the end of the bonnet. And yeah, I'm very excited to take this car for a drive. Now, I'm really looking forward to letting you hear what this car sounds like. So remember, we've got that 2660cc under the bonnet, and it sounds very nice. Hoping this glove box doesn't come open again because it keeps rattling. It's just running such a nice note. And as you'll hear when we go out for a drive, for a car of this era, it's remarkable in that there's no knocks, bangs, rattles. It's very quiet. I'll let you hear from the outside, from the back of the car, and then we're going to take you out for a drive. I've put a bit of extra hairspray on because I've got no roof to protect me today, but it's gloriously sunny. It's the perfect weather for this test drive, and yeah, I'm going to take you up through the gears and then we're going to go out for a little drive and I'll tell you what she's like. So let's go. My God, this is a car and a half. You would not believe when you got into this that it was made towards the end of the 40s. It's incredible. So whilst it's quite heavy, so you can see the steering, well, it's quite an understatement really, it's very heavy. It's so precise to drive. So as we come around the corners, you'll see that we're not having to rag it round. It only needs the most gentle of movements to get a positive response. And whilst I found it a little bit tricky to find third gear at first on that box, the second attempt it was absolutely fine. And as you can see our brakes here, we talked about those on the walk around. I would have liked them to be a little bit more responsive, but I think with a bit of forward planning and getting used to them, you would be absolutely fine. I mean, for the time, they're very, very good. Just in today's traffic, you want a little bit more. Now, even with the roof down, which of course would be as noisy as you could possibly ask it to be, it's still remarkably quiet. And as you can hear, we've got a little rattle from up there somewhere. But apart from that, it's really robust. It's robust. It's not bangy. It's not rattly. It's completely different to what I was expecting. And the nice thing is, with that 2660 under the bonnet, you've got enough power to keep up with modern traffic. The seating position is great. You can really judge where you are on the road. And for me, that gives me ultimate confidence. So I've just got into this car, never driven it before, haven't driven a column change in absolutely ages, and just cracked on. And it's so easy to drive. I actually can't get over how modern this feels. Honestly, I've got in stuff that's 10, 15 years newer than this, and it's felt more antiquated than this is to drive. This is totally not what I was expecting. As you can see here, when you're trying to get around quite a stiff corner and you need to be turning it, you're needing quite a lot. But when you're just driving along these country roads, it's absolutely fine. It's when you get down to the slower speeds and you're trying to get around these corners, that's when you're starting to feel it. I think if I had to park it, that's when I think I would say, oh, actually, it's a bit too much. So one of the questions that I asked Alistair was, what do you do about parts? What do you do about advice? Because it's all very well and good taking one of these cars on a drive and saying, oh, I've had a lovely day, I'd love one. But if the support isn't there, it is a miserable experience. Because let me tell you, as somebody who drives a car that you can't get bits for, one of the greatest blessings in my life is that we have a really good club for both the Marina and the Metro Owners Club. Are very helpful when you need bits and pieces. And so I said, well, what is it like for you with this? And Alistair said to me, he said, well, we're very lucky because the Austin County's Car Club are brilliant. He said, it's not only advice, it's parts being remanufactured. In fact, the sticker that's on this window was remanufactured by the club. They remade them, and there's just an awful lot of care there, and they take their responsibility and their role as custodian really seriously. And I don't know, I really, really like that. And I thought, for me, that makes the cars a more attractive prospect, because you know that if you're in a jam, there's a whole club of people that will reach out and help you. I tell you what, the only thing that actually, apart from that heavy steering, that is a bit off-putting, is this car has the turning circle of a ship. It's absolutely enormous. Going round the roundabout, it was really, really hard to judge how big my turning circle was. I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? But look, I'm having a great day. My hair is ruined, but I'm having a great day. It has been one of my favourite test drives probably ever on the channel, and I can't believe, honestly, I feel so lucky to have seen a car at a car show, lusted after it for nearly a year, and then be given the keys to it to take it out. I mean, it is a dream come true, and I just can't stop smiling. Oh, just having such a nice day. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video as much as I've clearly enjoyed making it, and I really look forward to seeing you next time, and until then, take care and drive safely.